All right, let's do this worksheet right here, one-step equations. So let's go back to one of the very first things you did in Algebra 1. You probably did the stuff that we did before, right? You first learned how to add and subtract with negative, positive numbers, multiply, divide with negative, positive numbers, and then eventually you get to this point. And then you actually, before you even get to this, you learn how to combine terms, all that good stuff, all the stuff that we've been doing. So I kind of crammed what I think is the most important stuff in Algebra 1, at least beginning Algebra 1, and put it into 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, okay? And this stuff that we do right here, I know I said this before with the other worksheets, but this is really, really what you're going to see in geometry. Okay, you're going to have to solve for a missing variable, okay, whatever it is. It's X or Y or A or B or whatever the letter is, that's what you're going to have to solve for. And in this word right here, in this word equations, you see a word, what? It's equa, but really, what is it? It's equal, right? So an equation always has an equal sign. Oops. EQU, there we go. It always has an equal sign. So an equation has an equal sign. If I just had 3x plus 2, is that an equation? Why not? Doesn't have an equal sign. Very good. Okay, what do we call this, by the way? We talked about this last week, and it was even the title of a lesson, one of the lessons, I think. When you just have something like this, no, it's not like terms. It starts with an E. Anybody know? EX. Expression, right. We call this an algebraic expression, right? There's no equals here. We can't solve for X. If this is all I have, I don't know what X is unless somebody tells me what X is, all right? I don't know. There's no way I can figure it out, all right? But what we're doing today is we're going to do something similar to that. That'll probably be in the 2-step. That'll probably be tomorrow. But we're going to do stuff where we actually find what X is. And they give you enough information in order to solve for X. So that's what equations are. So for instance, if I just said 3 plus 2 equals 5, that's an equation. Why is that an equation? Because it's got an equal sign, okay? So something that equals something else, it's an equal sign. What if I did this? What if I said x plus 3 equals 5? That's still an equation, isn't it? Again, for the third or fourth time, why is that an equation? Because it's got an equal sign. But now what we're going to be able to do is not just an expression. Right? The x plus 3 by itself would be considered an expression, an algebraic expression. All right? But the whole thing, the x plus 3 equals 5, is called an equation. This is called an algebraic equation. What we're going to do is we're going to actually solve. So they tell you, I forgot to say this in my last class, I should have. They tell you to solve. That's what they ask you to do. Solve for what? Well, there's only one thing to solve for. I already know what 3 is and what 5 is. What's the only thing I don't know? X. So that's what I want to solve for, okay? Now, you probably, especially since we just did that right there, you probably know what X is just right off the top of your head. Somebody tell me what X is. 2. Very easy, okay? But what I want to do is I want to show you the steps, and it's very, very important that you see the steps and know why you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, everybody could look at that problem and just say, yeah, it's 2. They're not always going to be that easy though, okay? The numbers might be more complicated. You might have some negatives in there, right? And you might get a little confused without the steps. So we got to learn how to go step by step, okay? So here we go. First of all, we want to get X by itself, all right? I'll give you a big fancy, it's not that big, but I'll give you a fancy math word a lot of times, and I probably won't say this in here very much, but if you hear somebody else say it, you want to isolate. You ever hear that word? Isolate the variable. What does that mean? If you're isolated, you're what? You're by yourself, okay? So that's what we want to do. We want to isolate the variable or get X by what? Itself, right? Okay? So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get X by itself. So when I talk about the sides, a lot of math teachers do this. I guess it helps. People say it helps, but putting a line right there, did you ever learn that? Okay. I'm just going to do it this one time, all right? Because I think the equals is enough. It's like a wall, right? You got one side of the wall, you got another side of the wall, all right? So you've got the left side and you've got the what? The right side, okay? The right side of what? The left side of what? The equal sign, right? So if you look at the equal sign, You've got the left side of the equal sign. You got the right side of the equal sign. I'm not going to put that. If that helps you, feel free. But really, you should only do that a handful of times until you get used to it. And then you really shouldn't need that line that goes down the middle like that. All right. They teach that usually in like middle school or something like that, just to kind of keep them separated. But at this point, we should be able to separate the left side of the equal sign to the right side of the equal sign. All right. So look on the left side. When I just say the left side, what's on the left side? Is it just the x? What else is on the left side? Yeah, plus 3. So the x plus 3 is on the left side. What's on the right side? 5. Good. Okay, everybody's clear on that. And what I want to try to do is get x by itself. So I want to get rid of the thing that's with the x. What is with the x on the same side with the x? The plus 3. It's a plus 3, isn't it? Okay. So in order to get rid of something, again, you've had Algebra 1 already, so this should not be brand new, but I'm going to say it anyway. In order to get rid of something, right, if I want to get rid of that 3 and get x by itself, I always have to do the what? Opposite. Very good. So I do the opposite of this positive 3. What's the opposite of plus 3? It's minus 3 or negative 3, okay? We'll just say minus 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract a 3. That way, what happens if I add those two up? What happens? It's a 0, and x plus 0 is just what? X. So I got x by itself. But the thing is, it's like a scale. You can't do one thing to one side, right, or it'll change the value, won't it? So whatever I do to one side, you've heard this a million times, whatever I do to one side, I got to what? Got to do the other side, okay? So if I subtracted a 3 from this, I subtracted a 3 from this. Okay, I'm going to put a little line right here just so I can bring everything down, okay? It's not a division line. It's just a line to separate. Don't really need the line. I just think it's helpful, all right? So plus 3 minus 3, they add up to 0. Or what do we usually say in algebra? They do what? They cancel out. That's right. They cancel each other, okay? So I cross them out. I can say cancel, but I want to know why they cancel. Why do they cancel? Because they add up to be what? 0. And x plus 0 is just x, right? So I can bring down the x. Now I drop down the equal sign. See how I'm dropping everything down? And now I drop this down. I got a 5 and I got a minus 3. What's 5 minus 3? It's 2. There you go. You're like, Mr. Hamrick, that took way too long. Well, the explanation took long, all right, but doing the problem doesn't take too long. I mean, yes, you could have just looked at that and wrote down the answer, but I want you to get used to showing your steps because, I've said this already, because in problems we're going to do tomorrow and the next day, Wednesday, we're going to be doing several steps, and there's no way in the world you're going to be able to just do that in your head. So you've got to show your steps. Everybody good with that? Let's do another one like this. Let's go y minus 4 equals negative 3. Now this one, you might be able to do in your head, but you might have to show this step. On something like this, I'd definitely show this step. All right? You might be able to figure out what this is. What minus 4 is going to give me negative 3? I'm like, oh man, that is a little bit tougher. Okay, so what am I going to do? Let's do the steps. All right? Let's follow the method, follow the steps, and let's do it. I want to get y by itself. What's on the same side with the y? It's not just a 4. What is it? It's a negative 4 or a minus 4. I look at it as minus 4. You can look at it as negative 4. It's fine. So I want to get rid of a minus 4. How do I get rid of a minus 4? I do the opposite, which is add a 4. Exactly right. So I'm going to add a 4. Whatever I do to one side, talk to me, I got to do the other side. So I add a 4 over here. Everybody good? Now, I put the line here. All right, let's bring everything down. So what happened to my minus 4 plus 4? They add up to 0, right? Or they cancel out. So I cancel those out. What am I left with now? A y, and then bring down the equals. It's negative 3 plus 4. This is what we did last week, right? This is why we learned that stuff. What's negative 3 plus 4? Positive 1, and then I circle it. If you want to put it back in to see if it works, let's put it back in. Okay, that's your, oops, what happened there? Minus 3. There's your original problem. Let's put the 1 back in and see if it actually works. So instead of y, what am I going to do? 1 minus 4. What's 1 minus 4? 1 plus negative 4, and it's what? It's negative 3. Do they equal? Yep. Does it check? Yep. I'm not going to make you check at this point. When I first taught, when you first learn it in Algebra 1 or pre-algebra, you probably learned this in pre-algebra, if you had a pre-algebra class. your teachers probably had you check it at least at the beginning. I'm not going to have you check it, but you could always do that just to make sure it works. And that would be the correct answer. Let's do another one. Now, we did stuff that was being added or subtracted. Guess what we're going to do now? Stuff that's being multiplied by x. So let's do this. So 3x equals 12. And again, these all say solve. I'm not going to necessarily write it every single time. So it says solve. Solve for what? Solve for x. So let's do that. Well, you could probably do this in your head. What is that 3 and that x? What are they doing to each other? They're multiplying, aren't they? All right. So 3 times what equals 12? 4. Yeah, I did that super easy. Okay, I made that real easy for you, so you didn't have to think that much. It doesn't get a whole lot easier than that right there for this kind of problem. It will get more difficult, so just be aware of that. So what's the steps, though? What are the rules? Okay, it's not 3 plus x, it's 3 times x. So what's the opposite of multiplication? It's just division. You can just say it if I ask. All right, so it's division. So here's how I show division. I don't do this little thing right there. Everybody see that? Okay, I show division by a fraction bar. Okay, that's how I show division. So I'm going to put over what? 3, because I want to get rid of the 3. I don't want to get rid of the x. I want the x to stay there. So I don't get rid of 3. I don't get rid of I don't get rid of 3x. I don't get rid of the x. I keep the x there, and I just get rid of what's being multiplied by it. So I just get rid of the 3. Come over here. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other side. All right, and now look what happens. Now, I got a 3 over 3. Did they add up to 0 this time? No. I got a 3 over 3, or a 3 divided by 3. What's 3 divided by 3? It's a 1. And what is that 1 doing to that x? It's being multiplied. And what's 1 times x? It's just x. Okay, 1 times x is just x. All right? So really, they still cancel out, don't they? They cancel out for a completely different reason than the other ones canceled out. But they still cancel out. A lot of teachers, I think, just say cancel out all the time. They don't really explain like why. But I think it's important. I think it's very important to understand that they cancel out because they're dividing and they become a 1. 1 times x is just x. Now, if I write too fast, it gets weird on this tablet. 12 divided by 3 is, and then that's the answer. That's exactly what you told me. And you're like, Mr. Hamrick, I could have done that in my head. Why do I got to go through all that stuff? Well, I've explained it 2 or 3 times already today, haven't I? You're going to get problems that are way more complicated than what we just did. All right, let's do another one. Let's go negative 2a equals negative 6. Again, you might be able to do this in your head, but this one's maybe a little bit trickier than what this was. But let's go through the steps. If you can't do it in your head, that's fine. Let's do the steps. I'm going to go a little faster. I want to get a by itself. So what's that negative 2 doing to the a? It's being what? It's being, well, the negative 2 is being multiplied by the a, isn't it? So how do I get rid of a thing that's being multiplied? I divide. It's being multiplied with the opposite of division. The opposite of multiplication is what? Division. So I divide. Do I divide by the whole negative 2a? No, what's the only thing I want to get rid of? It's the negative 2. It's not a 2, it's a negative 2. So I have to get rid of the negative 2. That's where a lot of people mess up. They might just divide by 2. All right, you have to divide by the negative as well. So if I do that to the left side, I do it to the right side. Okay, same exact thing. What happens to the negative 2 here? They cancel out because negative 2 divided by negative 2 is positive 1. 1 times a is a. All right? But I'm good with you just saying they cancel out. We good? A equals. And now look what I have. Again, our worksheets, the stuff you just took a quiz on, right? Wasn't something like this, almost like this on the quiz? Yeah. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 is positive 3. Okay, negative over negative is positive. Okay, now you don't have to put a plus there for positive, but you're good to go. Yeah? All right, let's do another one. It's going to be a little trickier. Not much. Not much. For some of you, like, well, that's no different than what we did before. But I think for some people, I think this might be just a little bit trickier. It's not hard, but let's do this. Let's go x divided by 3. Whoops, come on. X divided by 3 is equal to 5. Again, you might be able to do this in your head, but I'm going to show the steps. So what number, if I divide it by 3, am I going to get an answer of 5? What divided by 3 is 5? 15, right. So you should be able to do that in your head, agreed? But I want to show you why you got 15. Because look at this 3 now. This 3 is not being multiplied by x. It's not being added. It's not being subtracted. What's it doing? It's being divided. That's right. So how do I get rid of something that's being divided? I multiply because that's the opposite of division. So watch what I do. Everybody watch. Again, this is the one that messes people up a little bit. Just checking time. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to multiply by what? Just a 3. Don't multiply by 3x. X stays there. I just multiply by 3. So I multiply that by 3. Since it's a fraction, I'm going to put that over 1. Is that all right? Now, if I multiply the left side by 3, what am I going to do? Multiply the right side by 3. I don't need to put that over 1 because I don't have a fraction over here. Look what happens. I got a 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom. What do? They cancel out. They divide, right? 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times x is x. Equals 5 times 3 is 15. So there you go. So that is what we thought it was going to be, correct? But we showed our steps. And it's super important that you show your steps. That's about it for the worksheet. I don't think there's really any other variety of problems. I mean, they might throw some more negatives in there and stuff like that, but you should know how to deal with that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the worksheet here in a minute. I want you to write a 7 on the top of it. I forgot to write it because all the other ones I handwritten, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the worksheets. I forgot to do it when I printed these out. So make sure you put a 7 on there so when I refer to worksheet 7, you know which one I'm talking about. Everybody got that? So make sure you do that. And then you got a couple minutes left, not too much, but you might be able to get a couple of these done. And then I'll collect these tomorrow. We'll go over these tomorrow, all right?